If anybody gives me a hard time for uploading and or singing this, then I don't want to sing with you. And if you think I'm ignorant, maybe because we have different beliefs, well, that's on you. Maybe you haven't looked into it, maybe you have, but hey, we don't have to agree on everything. Let's do this. Yeah, that's right. Oh, man.
Today, Ben and I are talking with Mike, and Mike's call sign is Cujo, and Mike is an F-16 fighter pilot, retired, and he flew F-16s for many years, and he is the guy that Ben initially made the video about a while back, and he has decided that he wanted to go public and come out, visual because, well, I'll let him tell that story here in a little bit. But we're really glad that he has come out with us. And, Mike, it's really great to have you on Globebusters. This is fabulous.
Well, geez, I really appreciate it. You guys are like have been my television for the last number of years, and it's like I'm talking to celebrities. So if I'm a little nervous, like a little girl, don't make fun of me.
Okay. Well, we'll try and keep that mellow. So obviously you've already, you've been in it for a while. You figured it out a few years ago. And you decided recently that you wanted to go public, because you were kind of encouraging doctors, to speak out about what they know about the current pandemic. And, you decided that, who were you to advise them to do that if you weren't going to take steps in the same direction? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Thanks for keeping that YouTube friendly for me, because I may not have been able to do it.
No problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would be a really big hypocrite if I'm trying to hold them to task because they don't want to blow up their gig. My gig's kind of gone and behind me. There's nothing you guys can dig and get me fired from. So there you have it. But yeah, it's that's part of what's held me back was that my wife's a professional with the military as well. She's done almost 40 years and is retiring soon. So I wanted to start talking about this because there's just too many lies in the world now. It just seems like everything is deceit, and it gets overwhelming. And one of the biggest things that have been holding me back, I was talking about all the brotherhood and that from my squadron days in the past, one of the main things that you worry about as a fighter pilot is not dying or anything else. It's looking bad in front of your buds, or getting one of them killed because you didn't do something that you were supposed to do, or there's a lot of I don't know, I can't think of the word now, but you understand what I mean. It's you
there's
take that very seriously,
and they're like family.
You take it very, exactly right. And I don't want any of those guys to look at me and say, "Geez, what happened to Cujo?" But I will tell you that those guys, to the man, were the smartest people I've ever known. And all they have to do is go down the road that I went down, and they're going to be sitting on this side of the screen as well, because it's obvious. But the reason you don't ever look into it when you're in the moment is because you just figure the earth is just vast. You don't see curvature because it's huge, right? So you don't ever think to question it. I remember, I don't know, it was probably 2015. I don't know, when the first basketball player or some sports figure came out and said, "Oh, the earth is flat." And I'm like, oh my God. Well, I had a little bit of time. I'm like, why that? What's that? So I start to do a little research, right? And I Google, and guess what comes up? Flat Earth Society on the top thing. I read that. I go, what a freaking moron, these basketball players. Right? So about a year later, one of my daughters actually said, "Dad, have you looked into Flat Earth at all?" And I'm like, come on, no. And she's like, "Oh, there's some pretty compelling stuff. I think you might be interested." And again, I had some time. So I started digging into it, and actually found, I'm pretty sure I started with Taboo conspiracy stuff and seeing Too Far and those things, and Antarctica, really, that your video about Antarctica's closed or whatever. That was a big one for me too. But the See Too Far, and I never even thought to wonder what the curvature formula is, right? 8 inches per mile squared, that ain't vast, man. The distances that we were working would have made a huge difference in my visual and radar presentations on a day-to-day basis. I know that it would have. And, I just can't hop back 20 years and put it to the test. I wish I knew then what I know now. And actually, some of my goals about this is hoping that some young fighter pilot will go, I'm going to check out what that old bastard says, and go out and do what I'm going to describe to you guys in a minute to put it to the test. I hope it happens, but
yeah.
Well, guys aren't going to look at this. They're going to Google it and look at Flat Earth Society.
Exactly, and that's exactly it.
Like
we've said that so many times to people, that the Flat Earth Society is the first line that the alphabet agencies have put out there to draw people to them, and of course, then they tell them a story that's utterly absurd. And then the reaction is that people say, this is crazy. They walk away from it. They do exactly what you did. So when they got you to go to the Flat Earth Society and you walked away shaking your head going, these people are nuts. I mean, they did their job, right? So it's cool that your daughter suggested that to you. And it also tells me that, you think a lot about what your daughter thinks. You obviously have a lot of confidence in your daughter. And,
I tell you what, man. Just to put this out there, I've been so very blessed with all of my children that haven't been into drugs or any of the crap that a lot of people have to deal with. And my youngest now is like 32 or 33. You never keep that stuff straight, right? But I'm 60, and it's adult kids. You think your kids are fun when they're at a young age, but adult kids are even more fun. I just love it. And we listen to her, and some of them think I'm maybe a little bit crazy, but most of them are going, maybe true, but I don't care. That sort of thing.
That's a common one, that I don't care. I wonder
it's common.
I don't understand it, because for me, it's like, it means everything. I mean, we've been lied to since we were born. To me, is not, I don't care. That's like, one of those things that we got to tell everybody.
I think there's an element of laziness in that statement, right? I don't care because I'm not going to go digging and looking into that. Or, I'll listen to you and laugh, kind of thing. But, my wife is buying into it, and she's been in places. I mean, I am definitely not a whistleblower, because I don't have any more information about this than you do. No fighter pilot does, except maybe the ones that some of my buds that made very high rank, and I'll leave them
have a
nameless,
security clearance for it. Yes.
Yeah, that maybe know some.
And there are people in those positions that that have that security clearance, because obviously there are people that must know.
They have to know.
Yeah.
The whole space thing, and I don't know. Those are the things that make it hard for me.
Yeah, I understand.
It's obvious that we see too far, and the 8 inches per mile squared thing is crazy. You want me to get into the radar stuff now? The reason I got into it, or you got some other questions?
Yeah, in a minute. I want to cover a couple other things really quick first, then we'll let you kind of go through
before I put everybody to sleep.
No, not at all. There's a lot of there's a lot of areas. I have to say that Mike showed us his me room. Is that what you call it? Your me room?
I love me room. Every fighter pilot has one. So that gives me credibility amongst fighter pilots right there. They know I'm not lying. I really am one, because I got an I love me room.
Yeah, and as you can see behind him there, he's got the F-16 things on the wall, and all around him. He showed us earlier all of his medals and awards and training and squadron information and aircraft. I mean, everything. Wow, what a career you've had. It's absolutely amazing.
Would you mind covering some of that?
Paid them.
Would you mind covering some of your education and training?
Yeah. Well, in college, I got really lucky. I always knew I wanted to be I thought I wanted to be a civilian, kind of like a corporate pilot or something like that. I wanted to fly. I've been flying since I got my license on my 16th birthday. So I've been flying for literally as long as I could have. I was blessed with that and at a young age, but, ROTC in college, there's a 2-year program and a 4-year program. I had longer hair back then. I almost said back in the day, but I didn't say it, because that would be.
I'm watching you.
Anyway, 2-year program, 4-year program, and I'm like, I'll take the 2-year program. That why would you do 4 if you can get it done in 2? Well, I was talking to my advisor one day, and he goes, it was like in the end of the first semester, what do you want to do, kind of thing. Well, I need to get in the Air Force and get hours so I can be a pilot, right? So he goes, why aren't you enrolled in that? I'm like, wow, 2-year program. No, you're not going to get a slot unless you get over there and beg to let you in the second semester. So I got in late, and miraculously I got a pilot slot, which, there were only, I don't know, 15 of us that had them out of my college that year. But I went off to pilot training. Pilot training is a year long. Call it UPT, undergraduate pilot training. In the early 80s. I don't want to narrow it down to the year, because then people can look it up, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and believe me,
try to be as vague
try.
as possible.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll try to be as vague as possible. But I was fortunate enough to do well enough to get a fighter out of there. We only had, I don't know, six or so fighter assignments out of 30 people. So I got a fighter and got my first choice. I got an A-10. So I went and flew A-10s at a very beautiful location in stateside. And did that for 3 years, and then ended up flying OV-10s, which is, you get a bad deal for a good deal kind of thing. The Air Force always does that to you. Bob, you probably remember, here's a shiny thing, but you got to do this thing first, right?
Oh, so yeah.
I went and did OV-10s, but I loved it. I was a forward air controller, and so close air support was a big thing to me. And I learned so much, even though the top speed on the OV-10 is like the the actual airframe speed is 350. But you can get anywhere near that, even straight downhill. But anyway, from there, I got my good deal. I got my F-16 out of there, and I did that for 12 years, mostly in Europe. But one assignment, my last assignment, was back here in the States at an exercise facility where I got to fly every block and model of the airplane. It was pretty awesome.
Wow, that is incredible.
But that's it.
And you mentioned you have actually been in combat situations as well. Or can you talk about any of those?
I had the opportunity to fly in combat. I have about somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 hours in combat. Had some surface to air missiles shot at me, but it's kind of a funny story where, disciplined, trained fighter pilots, right? And you would, in training, it's always, if a surface to air missile comes up, a simulator or whatever, you're very direct on the radio, like, Cujo 1's defending Sam right 2 o'clock bearing 045, No, in the real situation, you just get on the radio and sound like a little girl and yell, Sam! I have a buddy Buster that every time I talk to him, he yells, Sam! But yeah, not my coolest moment ever. In every situation, you want to sound like calm and collected on the radio, right? So, you got an engine on fire, you're supposed to just go, yeah, engine on fire. I'll be ejecting here shortly.
I don't know how I would report.
You guys have to pull in the reins on me. I'll get off on a tangent. I'm old.
That's okay. I have no idea how I would report a sidewinder coming up my 6.
Yeah. Well, this was an SA6, and I was a little nervous about it, but I got even later.
Excellent.
But
okay.
That's a story for another day.
All right. Beautiful. So, all right. So you've been looking into this for a while, and as you told me earlier, you started in with Ben's stuff, and then you kind of came across Jeran and then Globebusters, and that was awesome to hear. And I have to tell you that what you're doing here is amazing, because so many people are afraid to speak out because of the consequences and what they'll try to do to you. You have people like Wolfie 6020 out there, and George Nutsack, these people will try and go after, people's careers, and it's horrible what they try to do. So I have to say it's very commendable. It's very brave. And, you've already kind of gotten a taste of that with Wolfie 6020, and you've had some interactions with him. And I'm just curious, you mentioned to me earlier that he gave you a quiz, he gave you his airline, pilot quiz. He thinks he knows everything. And when you answered the question, and then he came back and then accused you of simply looking it up. And it's like, well, geez, anybody could have looked it up. I answered his questions right too, but that didn't stop him from,
Yeah, there's no winning with those guys, right? They're going to try to do, debunked in 2 minutes. And by the time I left Ben's chat on that video, I'm like, I'm just out of here. And then, of course, because I disappeared, it's, obvious he was not whatever. I'm not in my previous life, it was rare that my integrity would be called into question. So I didn't even really consider that kind of thing. I should have. I don't believe everything I see on the internet either, but, whatever. But yeah, Woofy 911 369, whatever his name is.
Yeah. Well,
he's
like I said,
paid, so.
he is a paid operative. He's bragged about it. And nobody can stand him. He is a liar to the nth degree. And, he's the guy that they call in when they really think they've got a problem. Right. And why they would, we've had our interactions with him as well, especially recently with the Second Son thing. And I just thought it was ironic that they would call him in. It's like, what? Like, this airline pilot is supposedly a expert on astronomy now, and and the accusations that he comes up with are just crazy. So I wouldn't think too much about him. And people are going to look at you and they're going to judge you on your own merits and what they think of you, the man, and not what Wolfie says, because Wolfie has pretty much shown his hand and what he is and who he is, and that's not a good person at all.
Well, I appreciate that, Bob. But like I said, there's no way to argue with those guys, because any question you answer, you just looked it up on the internet, and he's not a real pilot, whatever. It's not like it's that special, I was just a pilot that kind of started thinking about 8 inches per mile squared ain't that big.
Yeah. And it's funny though that you say that, because I didn't think that much of it either, and I got my pilot's license back in 1978 also. And it was like, people think that because you're a pilot, you have this magical knowing, right? About how all the curvature of the world works. And it's like, no, they never teach you about that in any part of flight training. In fact, everything they do teach you is directly related to a flat stationary Earth, from your textbooks, which literally come out and state that, to your first days in your aircraft with your flight instructor. And he says, see that point on the horizon out there? You pick that point and you fly to it, and you will fly a straight and level flight, and it's that simple.
It is. And I remember, I'm talking 40 years ago. I remember like the first day in academics at UPT, it was reading that statement in the book is like, this all assumes a rigid aircraft, flying on a stationary flat Earth. And you're like, well, why would they do that? And then my mind goes to, well, the other stuff would just be too complicated in calculations, and they can't teach that to dumb pilots, right? So that's kind of what I thought, and I forgot about it, and that was that.
Yeah, it's easy to do that, but and then when you finally do realize it, you think about all the things from flight planning. Whenever you set up a navigation to go anywhere, it's all based on a flat Earth.
I never even thought about the horizon to the eye level thing was a big deal. I mean, I never thought about it, but from the first day in formation training, you're looking at the other airplane, and your instructor goes, if he's above the horizon, you're below him. If he's below the horizon, you're above him. If he's on the horizon, you're level. 100% fact all the time. Pitch outs and rejoins. We used to do these exercises where you're flying together, and the flight lead would give you the pitch out signal, and you'd pitch out and you do a big 180 degree, 360 degree turn, come back at 6 o'clock, and then he'd go into a turn and rock you in for a rejoin, right? Rocking his wings means come join to close with me. And fighter pilots talk with their hands, so that's more proof right there. I'm not freaking okay. Sorry. But the technique was put the guy about a fist above the horizon, get up on the wing line, and drive in level, so that if you overshoot under him or behind him, right? And only whenever you were obviously controlled and going to move in, then you come up to his level, right?
Right.
That's basics. And it's just not true. And all these other guys were piling on, and I got really upset about that.
Yeah. Like
I'm
I
glad
said,
to have that behind me. I'm not going to mention it one more time, Bob. That's another thing.
Okay.
That's another topic.
Screw Woofy. I'm down with that. That's fine.
All right.
Hey, Mike, do you mind explaining a little bit further for someone who might not understand what that means about the horizon? The fact that if a plane was above the horizon, they would be above you or below, and why this affects why it's important with respect to the flat Earth.
I never considered even about flat Earth, right? I mean, it was just a plain fact for us, was if he is on the horizon, then you are level with him. If he is above the horizon, then you've got the horizon down there. That's level. He's above you if he's above the horizon. And if he's below, it's below. I mean, it's that simple. And obviously the implications on a flat Earth, which I never thought of until I was getting all that crap from Woofy, mark a dollar. But I never even really considered that. It's not something I'd come across in any of the stuff that had been watching, but you get to thinking about it and go, well, geez, yeah, if you go up above a ball, the horizon is going to be down there. If you go up above a big vast flat Earth, then it's going to stay at eye level because of perspective.
And it does. That's right. And the thing that the Globers do not seem to understand about that is that, they will go up higher and higher and higher. And obviously, if there was a horizon, it would have to be below you, right? But they will say, because they can actually look down and see the horizon once you get up past a certain height, that proves that the Earth is curved. But what they don't seem to understand is that there is a limit to your vision.
It's a limit to your vision, right?
They are incapable of understanding that.
You can go on the internet and find HUD video where the horizon line looks like it's above a horizon, but it's not the horizon. It's like where the visibility ends here, but the horizon
it's the apparent horizon.
Out, right? It's like a false horizon or whatever.
And
you can find those videos all day, but
yeah, and that's the funny thing. Nowadays, it used to be 5 years ago, we were arguing against the Globers, and they were saying that, you can't see past this geometric horizon, right? Which, of course, would be the mathematical place where the Earth meets the sky. And now they're saying that it doesn't even exist. You can't see that.
Yeah, I can't follow that logic. I've watched those things, and I've tried to piece that together, and I'm like, I can't follow that logic, because
it's so
I know
retarded.
From thousands of hours of experience that the horizon is your level. I mean,
yes.
It's at eye level. It's your level. Anything above it is above you. Anything below it is below you. I mean, that's fact.
So,
and any of my old buds that are watching this will go, yeah, Cujo's right about that one. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that's a foregone conclusion. The ballers, they have to say stuff like that because, once the Black Swan came out, and I assume you're familiar with the Black Swan.
Yeah.
That pretty much annihilated the idea of any geometrical horizon, because there simply isn't one, and it is apparent, and that's what the flat earthers have always said. And that apparent horizon, like I said, when you get up to 30, 40, 50,000 feet, there will be a slight drop in the apparent horizon, but that is only because of the limitations of your visibility. And they, they can't comprehend that. But more importantly, as a fighter pilot, you depend on that type of observation. When you are like in combat, you have like a high-speed closure situation where you're coming together. You said it sometimes around 1,500 plus miles per hour. You better be able to make a snap decision, not only visually, but on your instruments as well, to be able to determine where that combatant is coming from. Yes.
Well, and two, if you get into a rolling, dogfight or whatever, you're dependent on the horizon. You're not looking inside, especially if you're defensive. You're looking outside and knowing, if he's above you, if he's below you, if he's above you, he's got more energy than you do, right? If you're at the same speed, he's got more energy because he can exchange his altitude for speed.
Yes.
For speed. So, I mean, it's just a fact. It's just a fact. I mean, and that's why I never even considered it like a thing, but apparently it's a thing.
So, that was one of the videos. And of course, Ben, I don't know if you saw it, but when I'm sure you did, when he played your video, he actually ran an instructional video about the particular piece of equipment that you were using when you were scanning with the radar. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I don't know if I know exactly your question.
The APG-68?
Yeah, APG-65.
APG-68. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know the model.
Yeah, I can tell you how that works, not like from a beeps and squeaks level, but from
I can tell you that part of it.
Yeah,
I can tell
right.
you that part of it. Yes, I'm the radar guy.
Well, this radar on the Viper is it's got a huge scan volume, right? Plus or minus 60 of the nose, left and right, and 4 bars up and down. They call it plus or minus 64 bar or plus or minus 32 bar, whatever, right? So these 4 bars are the scanning bars, and I'm pretty sure, but I would have to, this is 20, even like my training in F-16s was over 30 years ago. So take some of this with a grain of salt, but I'm pretty sure that like your radar, you can see my fingers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your radar is like a flashlight beam, right?
Yes.
It radiates out.
It's slightly divergent.
I guess in a cone, or it really in Doppler radars, it's more like a square maybe. But at any rate, it's like this. And I think this is 30 degrees, right? So 4-bar would be, it starts up here, 60 degrees to the left, scans over, 60 degrees to the right, drops down 1 bar, which would be 30 degrees, right? Scans back. So the bottom is basically at your nose. It's level if you got the L strobe in the notch in the center. It scans back. So you've got the upper 60 degrees covered, right? Twice at 30 degrees. Then it drops down another 30, scans back, all the way back over to right 60. Then it drops down again, scans back to drop that other 60 degrees. So I'm pretty sure it's 120 degrees this way and 120 degrees this way. This way, I'm not positive about, but I'm almost positive. Okay, so that's a huge search volume, right? That's if you go the rate, and there's ranges that you set in the radar. You can set it at 10, you can set it at 20, you can set it at 40, you can set it at 80. It even goes out farther than that. I think 120, but it may have been 160. I don't recall exactly, right? But we typically ran it out at 40 miles because, being careful what I say, a fighter-sized target is probably not going to show up beyond the 40-mile range, okay? Just suffice it to say that. So we pretty much ran, if you're just fully scanning, not really going to fight, you're running plus or minus 64 bar, both you and your wingman and the other element if you've got a 4-ship, right? Everybody's running that, just keeping it wide open. When you're going into a fight, though, you're like training fights. I never was in an air-to-air engagement in combat. They never came up to fight us. I did kill some MiGs on the ground, though, in a place I dropped bombs on. Anyway, that's beside the point as well. I'll go off on tangents, man. You gotta reel me in.
That's okay. Hey, we like hearing it. You just we'll reel you in if you get too far out. No problem.
Okay. So typically our engagements, you would have your adversary, we call them red air, and we're blue air. We're the good guys, they're the bad guys. They would split off and they would go to a point at least 40 miles away downrange from you. This is all in protected airspace, right? You'd have blocks, altitude blocks. For blue air is 0s to 4s, red air is 5 to 9s, right? That means like from 10,000 to 14,000 feet is my airspace. It skips 1,000 feet and goes 5s to 9s. So the red air is in 5s to 9s, 15 to 19. And then it would skip another 1,000 feet. I've got a block up at 20 to 24 and so on. I got a block at 30 to 34 if I've got the airspace up there. Okay, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So all sorted out so that when we come at each other at 12 to 1,500 miles an hour, then until you have complete SA on where everybody is, you don't leave your block. You stay in your block until if you go into a bad guy block, you got to know where everybody is, right? So whether you're fighting 2v2 or 2v4 or 4v4 or whatever, you kind of need to keep track of where everybody is. And that's the hard part. Air is hard for a simple-minded guy like me. I knew some really smart guys that could just 4-dimensionally fight a battle. They were awesome. I wasn't that awesome. I was great air to ground, but air to air, I was okay. I could hold my own, but it was the hardest thing. Anyway, so the radar, you get this 40-mile set, right? Everybody has a search responsibility. I'll just say that we're in a 2v4, okay? 2 of me versus 4 of them, right? We're separated by 40 miles. We're going to push, which means we're going to fights on. They come in whatever formation they're going to come in, and we're going to do our tactics to defeat what their formation is. They can come into us at, wide line abreast. They can come out into us in a post hole, high, low stack kind of thing, or lead trail formation. And you've got to adjust your tactics to come into the merge at a position of advantage against them so that you can kill them, right? If you can't kill them in the face before you get to the merge, which is ideal, and avoid dying by a missile in the face on the way in. And that's a whole nother story. Anyway, so because of this plus or minus 64 bar takes a really long time and we're coming at each other so fast, you want to reduce your scopes coverage down so that it covers it faster so you can find them quicker, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty simple.
Absolutely.
So what we would typically do is I got my wingman lying abreast a mile away from me, right? He's over there, I'm over here. We split the scope down the middle. So I got plus or minus 30 here, and I'm searching, say, surface to 20,000 feet. Yeah, that works better. I'm probably going to leave it in 4-bar if it's just a 2-ship. If it's a 4-ship, then we can split it into 2-bar and we can search quadrants of the sky, right? So we divide the sky up into quadrants and move the radar to where it makes sense. Okay, here's where the radar mechanics works. Because I want to search high, right? I'm just doing 2-bar up high. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to search from, say we're at the bottom of our block, 10,000 feet. I'm going to search 10,000 feet and above, and I want my wingman to search 10,000 feet and below, right? So you do this knob on the throttle. It's called the L strobe, elevation, whatever strobe. You can roll the radar search volume up so that there's a number on the cursor, right? The bottom number is the lowest bit. So if I'm searching 10,000 and above, I'm at 10,000 feet, then the bottom number on the cursor is going to say 10,000. Now it's searching up here, right? Mm-hmm. So I got 10,000 and above. So I don't expect to see anybody out there at 40 miles below 10,000 feet. What is that telling you now? I'm at 10,000 feet. I got the lowest part of my radar looking above 10,000 feet at 40 miles, but because I just ran my cursor out there and I set it there. What happened to the curvature between me and 40 miles? I would really be searching higher than that, right? If I set the cursor, the bottom of my cursor, basically level with the nose of my airplane, can you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I there and I run that all the way out to 40 miles. That the numbers change because the search volume gets bigger, but just the upper numbers are going to change because I've got this bottom set, right?
Right.
So the upper,
and theoretically,
because it's 60 degrees higher, so the volume is higher out there. But that bottom number doesn't change. I roll it all the way out to 40 miles. It ought to be this
dropping down.
Ought to be dropping.
That's right.
Higher. Because
otherwise, if it didn't, then the problem is going to be that somebody's going to literally slip in under your radar.
That's
literally.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. And it would also happen this way, wouldn't it? When I scan out there, when I'm looking 60 degrees right, 10,000 and above, and 60 degrees left, 10,000 and above, I'm losing guys under over there too, right? Because it's curving this way. Mm-hmm. So I would have no coverage below, you know what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. In other words, what they have completely failed to do in these situations is to set you up to be able to cover the curvature of the Earth. Because there isn't any, because that would be a gross negligence, really. And
because I know the radar
could sneak up from underneath you. That's right.
I know it doesn't do this, right? It
right.
does
and
this.
Some people will say, well, then how come you just don't turn on your max radar all the time for full range? Well, the problem with that is
way too long to get through the whole scan.
Exactly.
At the closure rates, then they would be in on us before we found them.
That's right, because you have in radar, you have a pulse recurring frequency, a pulse recurring time, and depending on how those are set is what depends what the maximum range of the radar is. Okay, and also the resolution, whether or not, it's going to give you data back, and the response time as well, because all of that stuff takes time.
You said resolution. Here's another word for you to confirm I'm a fighter pilot. Res cell. Guys can hide inside the resolution of your radar at range. They can be basically inside of 1 pixel, right? Mm-hmm. So you got a 2-ship coming in together, and it looks like one guy. And then when it gets close, oh no, I've got two there that I was going after with this tactic, and now I'm outnumbered 1v2, right?
Yep.
So res cell. Anyway, radar mechanics 101. They built it for a flat, stationary Earth. There's no doubt about it. And my goal is for some young fighter pilot to listen to what I just said, go out tomorrow and set the bottom of your L strobe on your altitude, run it out there to 80 miles, and that bottom altitude on your cursor will stay the same out to 80 miles, whereas it should get bigger, right? Because the Earth is curving away.
That's right.
Bingo.
Yeah, by a huge rate. That
was what I was trying to put in an email to Ben. No wonder it didn't work that way.
No, I understood it perfectly, but that's because I dealt with radar. So, but no, I understood exactly what you were saying, and you're absolutely right. And that point alone just nails it, because otherwise they'd be terribly negligent in not designing, having the support for you to be able to cover all areas.
Right. And the other thing is, say I got a lock on a guy at 20 miles out there, and he's in the block above me, right? If he's in his block and I'm seeing his altitude on my radar, once I lock somebody, I can see what altitude they're at, what their airspeed is, what their aspect is in relation to me, like if they're pointing at me or going away or whatever. So if I'm looking out there and I see this guy and I've got a TD box, a target designation box, comes up in the HUD what I'm locked on, I can pull my nose to him and look out there and try to get my eyeballs on him. So, because at 20 miles, you're not seeing the guy yet. You're not going to see him till probably, depending on the conditions, I don't even remember really, but probably 12 miles at the most. You're not seeing a guy out there at 20 miles. But I'll pull a technique is pull the TD box into the guy, look and see where it is. And if you get spiked on the nose because he's shooting a radar missile at you, you can do certain, I have to be careful about what I say.
I understand.
You can do certain things, and now you know where that guy is and do those things in relation to where he is, because you're going to gimbal him off of your radar when you start maneuvering. Like he'll get outside of that 60 degrees from you, and you got to kind of know where he was in the sky. So always, right, the guy's above me, and if he's at 20 miles and I got him locked, he's in the block above me, he's going to be above the horizon, and he always was. If he was down in my block, I'd call knock it off because he's in my block, right?
Yep, absolutely. There's no way around that. There's absolutely no way around that. There's
no way around, dude. There's just not. And I got to thinking about that in bed one night when I wasn't sleeping, which I do a lot. I just had to get up and email Ben the next day. I tried to get in touch with you, I think, first, but Ben was the one that responded to me finally. Maybe I tried Weiss first. And Weiss said, I don't want to talk to that guy. I got an interview.
Well, we're glad that you got a hold of us regardless. So, I mean, this is awesome. But, and this is something, Mike, the good thing about it is now that you have come forward and, it's very clear that you are a fighter pilot. I mean, Ben and I saw your me room. It's fantastic. You clearly know. I love me room. Yes, I love me room. And well, we all know that. I mean, fighter pilots have to have an extremely high opinion of themselves. They have to be incredibly confident. So I get it. I get the psychology. I really do. And
but I'm not really that way. You just have to have that.
I know. But when we're all young men in our 20s and 30s, we're a lot cockier, and life
just
is.
Ask my wife.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I totally get that. And, watch the movie Top Gun, right? I mean, that's what it's about. These guys are
great
full
movie,
of themselves.
totally unrealistic scenes, but great movie.
I know. Yeah, well, that's Hollywood for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people are going to see this and they're going to say, you know what? I think it's time for me to stand up and start talking, because, what we're seeing going on in the world right now, in so many arenas it's scary. It just
That's
is.
my great motivator, Bob, is that I'm just tired of all the lies, man. You cannot look at anything without deception in it. And now you're MO'd. If you look at something on Breitbart or whatever, what are they trying to feed me, It's not just Democrat and Republican. It's everything. What are they trying to push me into? This whole UFO thing.
Yeah, that's the next thing that I think, because the elite are fully aware that we're coming, the truthers are coming down on them all around them in every aspect, from 9/11 all the way forward, all of these events that have happened. And so now, obviously, the next thing they have to do is something that cannot necessarily bring blame or suspicion upon them.
Yeah.
And that's what,
and bring that one world, the world has to come together to fight this common enemy thing.
Yep.
Right. And
Reagan
Werner
nailed
von Braun told that lady that
Dr. Carol
this
Rosin.
is what was going to happen. It's been the plan, man. That's crazy. Ben, you're smiling. What do you want?
No, I was trying to reel you back in. But one of those, we've talked a lot about a lot of different subjects, but one of those I wanted you to cover is Coriolis. I've been doing quite a bit of research on German bombers, and one of the things they calculated everything: airspeed, directions, very detailed. How wind speed, elevations, everything had to be very exact in order to drop a bomb without actually seeing the target. But one thing they never considered was Coriolis. And that's something I wanted you to talk about is how much adjustments did you have to make on your bombing runs for Coriolis?
The very first time that I heard about Coriolis was on some flat earth video. Like somebody talking about Coriolis. I'm like, what the hell is that? Coriolis. Now, let me tell you something. I have dropped literally tons of bombs off of an airplane. A-10s. I've shot thousands of rockets off of OD-10s. Shot rockets off of Vipers. So I've dropped a lot of dumb bombs, right? All that stuff goes out the window, right? When you're dropping LGBs, laser guided bombs or whatever, if you're guiding them, or missiles, surface air missiles or whatever, air to surface missiles. All that guidance stuff takes this whole argument out of the picture. But I've literally dropped tons and tons of dumb bombs. As a side note, our practice bombs are called BDU 33s. 33. Illuminati confirmed.
Yes.
Actually, I think they're 33-pound bomb dummy units.
33
anyway, little blue bombs with a shotgun charge in it. And I did a lot of manual bombing in the A-10. I was flying the A-10 before INS. I even flew some A-10s before they had ILS, instrument landing system, but INS, inertial navigation system. We had ring laser gyro jets and some that were standard gyros. I don't know, whatever. He always wanted the ring laser gyro jets because they were supposed to be better. But still, all of the INSs sucked back in the early 80s. You had to update them or they would drift like 3 miles on a mission because you're maneuvering, they get off. So you'd have to fly over a known point and reel it back into where you are. But I grew up a map to ground guy, time, distance, and heading guy. So anyway, tons and tons of bombs and all different, from 60-degree dive bombs, 30-degree dive bombs, 20-degree, low angle, 10-degree, and from all kinds of situations back in the day. Dang it. There's another one. We used to think that the way we were going to go fight a war was low altitude, flying under the radar, in the ground clutter, so you could defeat SAMs and stuff. So in the Hog, in the A-10, we were low altitude kings. I mean, you could get checked out in certain situations to 100 feet. So you're rooting around at 100 feet, low ass altitude, and a typical bombing run was done out of a pop pattern. So you would action at a certain distance away from the target. You'd turn so many, like 30 degrees or 45 degrees or whatever it was, depending on what you were trying to accomplish, and pop up. And then you'd have a roll down, a pull down altitude, and an apex altitude. And you'd have to roll out right on like the numbers, or you're going to miss because it's just a dumb bomb. It's going to come off when the geometry says it's going to hit the target, and all that stuff is figured out for you. And you're supposed to fly exactly the profile and be exactly on airspeed, have the pipper on the target. And we used to have a saying, all you got to do is put the thing on the thing and press the thing. And
so basically, Ben, what he's saying is that
no Coriolis.
There is no Coriolis, and that's why he didn't even know what it was until it came up.
Yeah, no Coriolis. Long story short, I'll shut up and quit telling my story.
No, it's true.
Literally dropped tons and tons and strafe.
Oh, okay.
That's a 30 millimeter casing, right? That's the A10 bullet, right? Mm-hmm. It would shoot. Man, this is really reaching back deep into the recesses of my mind, but it would shoot like really close to 100 rounds per second. I think it was 80 rounds per second. It was a 7 barrel Gatling gun, right? So it would go real fast. You could actually see the vapor trail of the bullets from the cockpit. But you could get about a 75% accuracy from a mile. And that's putting the gun cross on the target, right? Maybe correcting for a little bit of wind, but never Coriolis.
Nope, never Coriolis.
Long range strafe, short range or regular strafe, low angle strafe was the ceasefire was like at 2,000 feet. So it was really fun. If you weren't shooting 100%, you weren't winning.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned that you've flown at high altitudes as well, right?
Oh yeah. 60-degree dive bomb. I mean, you have releases up in the mid-teens, 15,000 feet or whatever above the target. So yeah.
So what's the highest elevation you've actually flown, even in the F-16? That you can admit.
That would be elite. Well, 50,000 feet is the rule for Air Force pilots without a pressure suit.
Wow, that high?
50,000 feet. But I actually got to, I'm pretty sure it was 54 it was either 54.6 or 56.4 one time. And even in pilot training, I had a crazy instructor. He was a Georgia boy. I loved him. He was great. In T-38s, we went up. I don't even know where we were. It had to be a cross country or something because we didn't typically have airspace that would go this high. But we got up to like above 50 in the T-38, and he said, "Whatever you do, do not touch the throttles, because if you just move a throttle, you're going to flame one out because of the air is so freaking thin." But yeah, that high. I remember that the sky started to take on a different kind of thing. I remember purple, but could have been just the.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like what the sky does when
or whatever, but it would get really dark,
Yeah.
and it kind of seemed purplish or whatever. And I always said, yeah, you can see the curve, but what I saw was the circle of my vision.
Your own vision.
That's
exactly.
What you see.
And it's kind of like what we see when we launch a balloon up that high. We see the sky turn, to a dark.
Yeah,
kind of.
It was really cool looking. Man, yeah. I tell you, I believe there's some sort of containment. I think a firmament. I remember flying out over Turkey, eastern Turkey, going into northern Iraq. Back in the day, Bob, make a mark because
I got another one.
Because I owe you. We would go out. It's about an hour drive from where we were, and go up to about 30,000 feet. It's so dark because there's no lights out in the eastern Turkey. I don't even know if they have electricity out there, but you turn off all the cockpit lights and just look up, and you could see I don't know. I called them micrometeors at the time. I don't know what it was, but it was just kind of like little sparkles. It was so beautiful. And man, I wish I knew then what I know now. Because
you'd be looking at it in a whole different way, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it was fascinating then. And when I finally got into night vision goggles, which was later on, man, you see something all the time. Little.
Yeah, that's
little
crazy.
winters.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't ever flown that high, but it's interesting to hear you say that it looks like there's a bunch of sparkles up there because, you know, I've been looking at the firmament and I'm a big believer in the firmament. I mean, to me, there's no way that it can't be there. It must be there. There's
those rockets
mountains of
hitting off
evidence for it. Yeah, there's a ton of evidence for it. And, you know, our sky is very, very much electrical. And so, yeah, I just, you know, when you said that, when you have all these sparkles up there, you're probably seeing kind of like miniature meteor showers sort of up there, you know, up close and personal.
Like electrical discharges, probably.
Very much so. That's what meteors actually are. They're not.
Yeah, not what you always thought it was.
No, it is not what they tell us it is. That's ridiculous. I mean, none of these meteors ever hit the ground either. And, you know, we have some of the biggest meteor divots, you know, in the earth, and where's the meteor? They'll come up with something that maybe weighs 20 kilograms or 30 kilograms.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Yeah. So you're going to say that this 30 kilogram rock made this 2 mile? Come on, give me a break.
If you make the numbers big enough, you gotta have to believe them.
Yeah. Well, that's what they do. If they can't dazzle you with brilliance, they baffle you with bullshit, because that is the formula.
It is, yeah. That's kind of been the way I've lived my life, but I'm not doing that now, I swear.
So, one other question I wanted to ask you on my list anyway was with respect to low altitude flying. You've done some of that as well. And what speeds, any adjustments you actually have to make for the curvature, things like that.
Yeah, that kind of gets me into I'll answer your question like this. The whole argument about airplanes having to nose over to follow the curve, I don't like that argument, because I can't get my mind around it, because obviously I never did that. I've got 3 ocean crossings, in the F-16. You never lived until you take a single engine airplane over that far over the water, and you just quit looking at the engine instruments because you don't want to know. I had one oil pressure fluctuation one time that was right on the limits, and it just bugged the hell out of me. I finally put my checklist in front of me and said, I'm not going to look at that anymore. But anyway, I'm answering your question, I swear. Never nosed over in 10, 11 hours of flight, right? But I think that there could be an argument that, you know, all altitude is the altitude readout on your altimeter. To be in straight and level flight, you're just in a pressure differential from where you took off, right? I mean, you set an altimeter 299 once you get above 10,000 feet, and you fly that altitude. Well, you always got, at your cruising airspeed, there's always some AOA set, right? Angle of attack. So you're never nose pointing longitudinally parallel to the horizon. You're usually, you know, in some attitude like this with a certain amount of AOA. And, you know, who's to say I'm not trimmed up to follow that pressure gradient?
Well, I can tell you why. I can tell you why.
Well, I'm sure you can, Bob.
Because
I just don't like the argument, because I can't get my head around it and argue it concisely, right?
Right. Well, first of all, the reason that you never, you know, had to make the adjustment for it is because it's not there.
Flat.
All right.
I get that. I know that.
That's the no-brainer part of it.
I get it.
Secondly, the gyroscopes, the gyroscopic claim to fame is, of course, rigidity in space. And of course, you know, and I did this. I actually took a gyro on a plane, commercial flight to Maui from Denver, right? And I think I calculated something like 35. I can't remember what it was, that it should have actually rolled over or precessed, and of course it didn't, and yet you can put them on like a 7-day recorder, which is something as low as a 1.2 degree per hour, you know, change of angle. And of course, remember, they're trying to tell us that gyroscopes, well, they're never sensitive enough to pick up the 15 degrees per hour. Not only is that complete nonsense, but we were actually able to do it at 1.2 degrees per hour, and we did it with incredible accuracy. So regardless of, you know, whether or not you would notice it or you would see anything in your rate of climb indicators, the gyroscope is going to register that pitch change, point blank. There's no way around it.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, the flight path marker is on the horizon whenever you're straight and level, and it was there all the time. And, I've got attitude hold on. So let me go further with my answer to this question, though.
Okay.
I see where this comes into play at low altitude over the water, very low altitude over the water at high speeds. And I have been there. I have done very low altitude above the water in protected airspace or northern Iraq. It's near the Mach, 0.95 Mach. And I feel that if you were flying at 0.95 Mach is roughly 9.5 miles a minute. That was our planning factor. Mach 1 is 10 miles a minute. It's not really, but it's close. So at 9.5 miles a minute, I think I probably would have had to be a little bit light in the seat to stay very low, right?
Yes.
To hug the water. And that didn't happen. And I did that for quite a while over a lake for probably 20 miles.
Yeah.
And some poor hapless fisherman that happened to be in my flight path probably suffered for it. And to him, I apologize.
Okay, so I'm actually going to share screen on this because we did this earlier. Let's see. There's that. Okay, now this is something I showed you earlier, and I actually did this a demonstration using the Boeing 737's cruise speed, right? And if it flies for 1 minute, basically it goes 8.6 miles. The curvature z-axis in that 1 minute, it drops 49 feet. Z-axis in miles 0.0094. Basically, I just put it on there. So the average foot per minute drop would be 49.8336, right? Then I decided to do it. Well, let's just double the speed of that, because it just so happens that if you double the speed of a 737, it turns out to be exactly the rotational speed of the Earth, right? And of course, you can see what happens there. But the big thing is that when you start looking at these things, going over a certain amount of area over so much time, we're looking at an average here. Note it says average foot per minute drop. So if we go 15 miles, we're getting a 747 per foot per minute average drop. And I'll tell you what,
15 minutes. Yeah.
That's insane, right? There's no way that you would never be able to. Now, average would also mean that you would have to have a lot lighter than that. But at some point, as you're going over, right, you're going to be coming, damn near straight down, or it would seem like it. And so this is actually how the math works out on the z-axis. And we know this doesn't happen, but yet the geometry absolutely demands it. So now what they're doing is they are coming out and they're saying, well, then what's happening is the 8 inches per mile squared is not accurate. And the problem with it is because it is being calculated based on a parabola. And of course, my response to that is, let me go back over to here, is this, okay? So, and in fact, Dave Weiss is having a discussion against some scientists, physicists with Eddie Bravo. And he said, well, what do you do with these people? They're denying all of the 8 inches per mile square measurements. And I told him, I said, David, just tell him to do the math. And then to tell him what he gets, ask him what he gets for these distances as far as curvature. And you can compare it then to 3 different methodologies that I put out here, 8 inches per mile squared using the Sagitta or AutoCAD, okay? And as you can see, these things are all really good, even if you go up to 500 miles, 31.53 miles, 31.57, 31.7. It's just a couple of tenths off, right, as far as curvature. So it's good now at 500 miles, even at 1,000 miles, we're no more than a mile off, right? So they cannot deny this. I mean, it checks out in every conceivable mathematical permutation, right? It just it just is what it is, and you cannot take that away from it. And so now they're trying to, first they denied that, the horizon existed, right? The geometric horizon. Well, you can't see it. Now they're denying the 8 inches per mile squared. Well, then all I can say to that is, then tell us what it should be and prove it. And they'll never be able to do that, right? So that's why, I just think that it's amazing the excuses that they come up with, right, to try and shut these arguments down. But, that is what this is based on, just simply by the 8 inches per mile squared. And when you look at these numbers, of course they're absurd. They're absurd because we're not on a globe, because to even remotely come to anywhere near these foot per minute drops over this period of time is complete ludicrous, right? It's lunacy. So, that's what I say to that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. That's for sure. It's just a really hard thing to get your mind around. But so is the air being stuck to the spinning ball in the column all the way to infinity.
That's another one.
I mean, how did I ever believe that? I mean, Lord.
And every time it's ever put to the test, it always comes up the wrong direction, right?
Gravity. It's just gravity.
It's gravity. Yeah, it's amazing.
That's gravity.
So that's that's what I have to say about it. And I'm really happy, that you have come forward and talked about this, because this, I'm sure, is going to motivate other people to come forward, and maybe even.
Well, I hope so. Depends on what happens to me after this.
Well, the trolls are going to be the trolls. Are going to do their job. But there's nothing they can do really, other than they can preach to their choir, and their choir can say rah rah rah. Yeah, that guy's no pilot, no way. Yeah, he's a dumbass. He doesn't have any idea.
Pilots aren't that stupid. They're not that ugly. They're not that short. They're really not that fat. Well, I wasn't a pilot. I wasn't fat 20 years ago, so leave me alone. There is one more thing that I want to cover before we break this up. And this is not going to be popular with everybody, but I have good news. There is really good news about chemtrails. Every single chemtrail that you see in the sky isn't necessarily spraying on you, because I can tell you for 100% certain, contrails are a real thing. I don't know that. I think some people, the way I hear them talk, and I see them in chats or whatever, that they're just spraying everywhere. It's not always spraying. I've made lots of them. Forecasters can predict at what flight level they'll be, because we need to avoid them. Like in those air-to-air setups I was talking about before, you don't want to expose yourself at 50 miles so a guy can just go, oh, there he is, without even having a radar lock. They see you. So we make contrails all the time. My only point is, every mark in the sky that you see there, it's not necessarily spraying. I know that they've admitted, we've seen they do, but not everything is. So maybe that takes a little bit of pressure off of that. And I feel like I would be remiss in not saying that, because I've made contrails myself.
That's good. And actually that makes sense. And obviously the contrails have everything to do with temperature and humidity. And the interaction of the exhaust with it. And you're right, not every mark up there is a contrail.
Well,
I mean, and not
leave it to Bob to break it down to know exactly what causes it. I just know my hot stuff coming out the back, it makes clouds. That's all I know.
That's right. Yeah. But you're right. It's not 100% all the time. So I agree with you completely on that. And people do get a little bit overzealous, I think. They'll see that and they'll go, oh God, they're spraying. And it's like, well, no, not exactly. And, to me, I've looked at them for over 20 years now, and there's a distinct difference. To me, the real ones, the authentic ones, are very obvious. But not everybody really looks at them the way I do, I suppose. So
I live out here in the middle of nowhere, so they don't spray. They don't bother spraying me. They already know I'm whacked out.
Yeah. And I still have. Yeah, it's good. And honestly, I still haven't figured out exactly what the whole purpose behind that is. I mean, there could be several reasons for it. I still tend to believe it has something to do with creating an ideal medium for holography. but I could be completely wrong on that. But at this point, I just don't know. So I'll leave it at that.
Testing things too. I know.
Mm-hmm. Well, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Cujo, I got to tell you, man, I really appreciate it. And I hope, maybe we can have you join us on another show sometime. We'd love to have you come on Glowbusters and maybe join a panel one day. Or,
I'm nowhere near smart enough for Glowbusters. Come on.
No.
I listen to Wits It Gets It, man. And that dude is on another level for me.
Yeah, he is.
You too, really. I think Ben and I might be able to have a conversation over in the corner. As long as he doesn't start talking lawyer on me, I'll be all right.
Yeah. Ben's no dummy either, believe me. I think all the guys on the Glowbusters team are pretty smart. So it's a good group of guys.
So I agree, 100%. I was laid up for a few years and was able to deep dive into things. I caught up on a lot of episodes of Glowbusters and all of Ben's stuff. That was it was a good opportunity. So you guys, like I said, were my TV for a number of years. So I've been talking to my celebrities.
Awesome. Well,
this has been so awesome to talk with you, Mike, and thank you so much for doing this. I actually feel bad for the coming trolls that are going to be attacking you, and all I can say is I'm sorry, but it's not my fault.
I know it's coming, but I probably won't even look, to be honest. So they can knock themselves out. I don't care. I'm not going to look. I know my truth. I know you guys know who I am. So
yes, and we do too. We got the grand tour, and there is no doubt in my mind you are exactly who you say you are. None. Yeah. So yeah,
thank you.
That's awesome. All right, beautiful. Well, I guess we'll just wrap it up then on that, and Ben can do his magic with this thing, and we'll put this thing out. I think Ben, what he usually does is he'll do his editing, and if we add anything to it, and then he'll run it by Q to make sure that everything is cool in there, that you're agree with all of it, and then
I'll be honest right now, I don't see much there to edit. I mean, it's kind of I like it the way it is. I mean,
I do too. It's pretty good.
Is there anything that you said in this that you would like me to re-examine?
Back in the day,
add a couple of back in the days in there, just to get it up to $10.
Yeah, I'll be looking for those donations on Rockfin.
What was the total? If you don't call me out, I'll be pissed.
There's only 3 of them. So there you go.
3 back in the day and 2 woofies.
Yeah, 2 woofies.
All right,
okay.
So I owe you $5. You watch it.
Fair enough.
All right, man. And it's my honor to talk to you guys. I don't want to stop because I never get to talk to anybody about Flat Earth. As a matter of fact, I try to go as much time as possible without seeing another human being other than my brother and my wife. So, I don't get off the farm very often these days.
Yeah, I understand. Well, you know what? You have my phone number and Skype, and feel free to contact me anytime.
Yep.
And
you'll be sorry, Bob. I'm gonna be calling you up. Hey, Bob, I was thinking about this thing the other day.